Hi guys, today I'm going to be making sourdough bread. Now this is the part when I usually show you the finished product, but not today because I want to build some suspense. Sourdough bread from starter to finish. You're watching the Bear Pantry Show. Now this is the part where I usually tell you guys what ingredients we're going to need. I'm not going to do that today though because this recipe takes place over the course of quite a few days. What you need to know is that you're going to have to make a starter. And in order to make the starter, all you're going to need is 3 ingredients: flour, water, and thyme. Let's begin. This is the first day, but I call it day 0 because I'm just now starting. Now remember I told you that to make the starter we have to use flour, water, and thyme, right? Well, when I said thyme, I wasn't talking about the spice. I'm talking about actual days. So I'm starting off right now by using 1 cup of all-purpose flour. I'm adding it to this mason jar. To that, I'm adding 1 cup of filtered water. And by filtered, I mean no fluoride and no chlorine in the water, okay? I'm using a plastic spoon and I'm just stirring it up. See, it looks like paste. Now, all I have to do is cover it up loosely with some stretch film. I don't want it to be tight because I want it to capture bacteria. So I set it on top of the fridge where it's warm, and then 24 hours later or a day later, I come back and I take a look at it. See, that stuff on the top is called hooch. I pour off half of the starter into this bowl and I throw it away. And then now I'm adding half a cup of all-purpose flour and half a cup of filtered water to the jar. So it's not a cup anymore, okay? It's half a cup. Stir it up with my plastic spoon or a plastic knife. See, look at the left of the screen was yesterday, on the right is today. See, some bubbles are starting to come. And now I cover it up with my stretch film loosely again, set it on top of the fridge. 24 hours later or day 2, take a look again. See, it's starting to smell fermented like beer. I pour off half of this and then I stir it up and I do the same thing that I did yesterday. I add half a cup of all-purpose flour and half a cup of filtered water again and stir it with my plastic spoon. And I want to make sure it's well incorporated. Don't leave any of the flour dry or stuff like that, okay? And I want to show you guys what it looked like. Yesterday is on the left hand side of the screen. Today is on the right. See, more bubbles. I'm capturing more yeast. This is day 3, 24 hours later, and I'm doing it in the evening time after work, okay? I pour out half of the starter, and you don't have to throw it away, okay? You can make pancakes or waffle out of the starter that you're throwing off. So I'm feeding the starter again by adding a half a cup of flour and a half a cup of filtered water to the jar. And I'm using my clean plastic utensil again. Look, the left of the screen was yesterday, the right is today. Awesome! And so now day 4, 24 hours later, we're doing the same thing again, okay? We're pouring off half of the starter, adding half a cup of filtered water, half a cup of all-purpose flour. Depending on the region you live, you may need 7 to 10 days to do this. And for me in California, it's looking good in 4 days already here, guys. It's looking pretty good. And so I'm stirring it up with my plastic utensil. Yesterday is on the left, today is on the right. See more bubbles? Now day 5, proofing the sponge. Freeze the screen right here and write this down, how to proof the sponge. But if you don't want to do that, I'm going to tell you guys, okay? So this is the jar. I'm pouring all of the starter into this clean plastic bowl right here. And see, it looks really liquidy, right? Is that a word? So anyways, I'm adding 1 full cup of all-purpose flour. And I'm stirring really well with my little plastic spoon. And I use plastic because when I use wood and metal, it causes mold to come. I'm putting 1 cup of filtered water. This is the day that we're going to make the bread, okay? So I'm starting pretty early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I stir it to get it smooth. And you're not going to get rid of all the lumps. Clean your jar because we're going to need that. Look at the bubbles already within 10 minutes, guys. I have a lot of good yeast going in here. I'm so excited about this. Now, this is the way to make the mother. Freeze this and write it down. But if you don't want to do that, I'm gonna tell you. So look at this 3 hours later. Check on the sponge. See all the bubbles? I wish I had zoomed in here for you. Now I'm taking 1 cup of this out, 1 cup of the sponge. It's no longer called a starter, it's called a sponge. 1 cup of this, and I'm gonna add it to my mason jar. Remember I told you guys to clean it? So in the jar I have half a cup of flour, and I'm adding 1 cup of the sponge and half a cup of water. Again, filtered water. Stir it up with a plastic spoon. And then this time I'm going to put a real lid on it, not that shrink wrap thing. Stick it in the refrigerator where I'm going to feed it once a week. I'll tell you guys more about that later, so I can make bread anytime in the future. Now I'm going to make the bread. I'm so ready. We're going to make the bread. So we start off by measuring out 2 cups of starter. And that's all I have left after I measured out that 1 cup. I pour it in a big bowl because I'm going to make the bread in this bowl. I'm not going to be using the KitchenAid, guys. I'm going to show you guys a little trick. So 2 tablespoons of sugar. You can add more, but try not to put too much. Half a teaspoon of salt. Don't add too much salt because it's going to retard the action of the yeast, all right? So I added 1 cup of flour so far, and I'm using the handle of a wooden spoon to use as my dough hook. So if you don't have the KitchenAid, you don't have any excuse. You can still make this bread, okay? Just get a wooden spoon. Now I'm adding 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You don't have to add any oil or butter if you don't want to. You can delete that out completely, or you can switch the olive oil for some melted butter, okay? So now I'm using the handle of the wooden spoon and I'm working this dough because it's really sticky. It's more sticky than any bread I've ever made. Now I'm adding some more flour, but I can't tell you how much flour you're going to personally need because it depends on the day, the region, and everything. And you're looking for a texture rather than an amount. Okay, so it's going to be a stickier dough, but it's not going to be too sticky. So I'm feeling it. I'm going to feel it right now with my hand. It's too sticky. So I'm adding more flour. So far I'm up to like 1 3/4 cups of flour. Okay, almost 2 cups of flour. And I'm working it with the handle of my wooden spoon. And now I put my hand in it. It's feeling a lot better. And then now all I have to do is go ahead and dump this out on the countertop. And it's really sticky still, and it's really soft, guys. So I'm just going to keep flouring my counter as I need to and flour the dough and just knead it. So now I'm greasing this with some olive oil because I don't have that spray thing, you know, the thing that people use with the girl's name on it. I don't use that. And so anyways, just go ahead and knead for so long as you need to not let it be too sticky. Stick it back in the bowl and set it aside from anywhere for 4 to 9 hours, okay? So I covered it up, and for me it took 5 hours. So 5 hours later, take a look at our little bread here that's rising. And so I'm going to dump it out of the bowl, put it on the counter, and some people say punch it down, and I say that sometimes too, but I'm kidding when I say that. All you have to do is knead so you can get those air bubbles out and activate all those good glutens and all that stuff. And so flour the counter accordingly and just go ahead and knead. And this feels so good under my hands, you don't even know. So now I'm going to make a burrito. Fold one side, fold the other side. Fold this end and then this end, and then of course I'm going to seal it off like when we do the baguette. Flip it over and I have a loaf. At first I was going to put it on a baking sheet, but it was so soft I was afraid it was going to spread wide rather than tall. So I put it in a loaf pan because it has nowhere to go but up. I covered up with a shopping bag, and look, see, 2 hours later, isn't that beautiful? It's risen nicely. I can't believe this. It's so awesome. So I stick it into the preheated oven. It's preheated at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to let it cook. Oops, I forgot to tell you guys. Put a pan of water on the bottom shelf if you want the top to be crusty and hard, okay? So here it is an hour later. Dump it out and allow it to cool. Now, as I wait patiently for this loaf of bread to cool down, let me go ahead and show you my other failed attempts at making the starter. This is my first starter that I did, and this one calls for 1 cup of flour and 1 cup of water, and you're supposed to do it with a wooden spoon and not a metal spoon at all. Put a cover loosely, set it on the fridge. 24 hours later, put the same cup of flour, the same cup of water, and then just go ahead and mix with the wooden spoon again. It developed some mold and it was stinky, so I threw it out. And then I started with my second starter, and I really thought this one was gonna work, so I started recording myself on camera every day to show you guys. So this one starts off with a cup of whole wheat flour and a cup of pineapple juice, and stir it up and cover it up loosely. Well, I covered it up with actually this strainer, you know, so that the yeast can get in there. So this is the first day. And then here comes day 2. I always set it on top of the fridge, okay? Here comes day 2. You're supposed to stir it up and then add only a half a cup this time. Half a cup of the whole wheat flour and a half a cup of pineapple juice. And then stir it up some more. And then 24 hours later on day 3, take it down and check it and stir it up. And it was looking pretty good. It was making some bubbles. It didn't have a whole lot of bubbles, but it was making some of the little bubbles that it's supposed to do. This time I'm adding half a cup of all-purpose flour and half a cup of water. And it's supposed to look oatmeal-y like this. So I covered up with my netting, put it on top of the fridge, and by now I was getting really confident that it was gonna work. I started telling my whole family what I was doing, started telling you guys at the vlog. This is day 4 of my doing my starter thingy here. And I stir it up again, and this time around I'm gonna add 1 cup of flour and only half a cup of water. It was a different thing that I had to do each day. And this was right oatmeal again, so I covered it up and set it on top of the fridge. And you know, pretty much day 5 rolls along, and I'm getting more and more excited for my sourdough starter. And so now I have to feed it again. Have to feed it again. So I stir it up, and then now I add only half a cup of the flour and half a cup of the water and stir it up. And if it was too thin, like this, it's too thin, then I'm supposed to add more flour, which I did. So I ended up with a total of 1 cup of flour for this day. And then just kind of like set it, you know, cover it up with my little strainer again. And then set it on top of the fridge because that's like the warm area in the kitchen. And then day 6 rolls along and I'm getting more and more excited. And now this is what I have to do to it because we're going to actually bake on day 7. So I stir it up, and this time I'm supposed to put half a cup of water in and a whole cup of flour. And so I do that, and I'm still using the metal spoon, and I'm not getting any mold, so I'm pretty excited. But look what happened 12 hours later. It made this kind of thing over it. It didn't have any mold, but this was icky, so I kind of scraped that off. And then I covered it up and put it in the fridge because I'm going to bake on day 7. And so day 7, I'm supposed to feed it again, but this time only with a cup of flour. Set it aside to make the sponge. And the sponge, it means that there's a lot of little holes like this that's supposed to come. But for me, I didn't know that it wasn't enough. So it wasn't activated enough. So I'm still making the bread, you know, moving along. I measure out the 2 cups and then put flour. I'm not going to say what all I did for this bread because I've done a different one on the first part of this video. So here's the bread. I'm really putting the effort into it, kneading the loaf, set it aside in this bowl, cover it up right here with the stretch film, and go on ahead and like tuck it away in the oven so that it can rise. It took 5 hours. I rekneaded it. I put it on the tray. I baked it, and then look, see, it was awful that the kids and Joe are tossing it around like a football. Can you imagine? I was so mad. So then I was brave enough to start yet a third. This is day 2. I'm supposed to add 3/4 cups plus 2 tablespoons of flour and half a cup of water each day. And it was so bad by the 3rd day that I dunked it. It smelled like vomit. Oh my goodness. All right, guys, let's see how this bread came out. So let's cut that first slice. Now let me shut up so you guys can hear this. Isn't that a wonderful sound? Look how beautiful this thing is on the inside. Listen again, listen again. Oh my goodness, I am so tickled at this. You will not even believe. After all the failed attempts, I actually did this. I captured yeast from the atmosphere in my house and I made this awesome bread. Alright guys, so if you're going to try your hand at making the sourdough bread, I want you to know one thing. Don't give up, okay? If I had given up after all those failed attempts at making the starter, I would have never had this fantastic bread today. Anyways, I want to tell you guys a few things about making of the starter, alright? If your starter fails, and by fail I mean if after about 3 days you don't see bubbles and activity going on, throw it away and don't waste your time with that and just start over again, okay? If it develops mold, go ahead and throw that away. You don't want to scrape the mold off the top like we do with the cheese because you have caught bad bacteria and you don't want to go ahead and eat that, all right? Now the next thing, if it stinks like in an evil way, you want to go ahead and throw that away too. And by that I mean if it smells like vomit. It's supposed to smell more like fermentation or like beer. It's Cora screaming and hollering at nighttime. It's the worst for that dog. Anyways, when I changed out from that big mouth jar to the narrow mouth jar and use plastic utensils and start throwing away some of the starter each day. And by the way, that starter that you throw out, you don't have to throw it out, okay? You can make pancakes and waffles out of it, and we actually did that one of the nights, and it came out really, really good. So I found out that when I started throwing away the starter and use a plastic utensil, my thing was like jumping and having a good old time. It was vibrant and alive and everything else. And it was actually ready like right after the 3rd day it was ready to use. But I'm using it today like at the end of the 5th day because this is the only day that I have to make the bread. Also, I want you guys to know if you don't have time to make the bread within like 7 days of feeding the starter, just go ahead and put a lid on the jar, stick it in the refrigerator, feed it once a week. On the day that you're going to make the bread, take it out, proof the sponge, make the mother, and then make the bread. It's as easy as that, so I say. Anyways, guys, I hope you like this video. If you like it, hit like below for me. Share it with your friends and family. And until I see you guys again, take care. It's good. Don't forget to subscribe and also check out my other two channels, the product review channel, Bear Pantry Talk, and come have some fun with my family and me over at the vlog channel, Babs Bear Talk.